I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you very much. We'll start with a roll call, please, Joan.
Chris Mortensen,
Here.
Charles Long, Michael Schaaf,
Here.
Priscilla Benali, Kevin Mitchell.
Here. All right. We'll start with the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Second down there. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali, Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. Next thing is item 3A, approval of the minutes from September 23rd, our special meeting.
Motion to approve.
Oh, hold
Excuse
on.
me, hold on one second.
Wait. Got it. The
A, 2A.
All right, we'll pause for just a second and go to the JOM National Johnson O'Malley honorees, and I'll turn the time over to Mr. Hyatt for that.
President Mortensen, members of the board, we're excited to have two of our teachers here today who have been recognized nationally, and we're going to have an opportunity to recognize them as a board today. And so we're excited to have them here. And I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Bell to talk a little bit about this recognition, and if I could ask the board to please come down to the front and so we can recognize these great teachers.
Good afternoon, Mr. President of the Board and members of the board. It is my honor to recognize two of our Heritage Language and Culture teachers that were recognized by one of our school board members at the Johnson O'Malley Conference, which is right on the border of Oklahoma and Texas, one of the hardest places I've ever found to send somebody. But they were both recognized. Our first recognition, good. There she is. And I just also want to introduce our Director of Cultural Education, Ophelia Sanchez, who helped us get all the paperwork in to the Johnson O'Malley Conference. So our first teacher recognition is Ethel Allison from Stagecoach Elementary, and she's being recognized, yes, that's right, as the Teacher of the Year for the entire Southwest region of the United States. Congratulations. Congratulations, Ethel. So Stagecoach has some real great teachers there. And our second teacher is recognition for Region 2 Teacher of the Year, Miss Catherine Begay from Navajo Pine High. And Region 2 is basically the region that we represent for Johnson O'Malley. Congratulations. And just realizing that these two individuals have done a tremendous amount of work with our curriculum and developing our new Navajo language and culture curriculum. We want to give them one more round of applause for all the work they've done. Show your plaques. Oh, that's beautiful. Once again, congratulations to both of you. Would either of you, Mr. Mitchell has asked if either of you'd like to say something to the board.
Yat A Catherine Begay Shia, but Anin Schlot last year, Bashichin. Han Kia Ani Edashit Trohan Edashinale. She not dean that it's a not dean sebi. A shaltra, chinin le hastra don lene nast age. Shataltra, neji. Ado hehen hidedeshnil. Mr. Hyatt, thank you very much for making this happen with the two board members. I appreciate it very much. And I originally come from Crystal, but I reside in coal mine. It's called Setkilnagai. So that's where I'm staying right now. And I love teaching. It's, I fight for the students. It's my passion. It's just so very much going to work every day and seeing the students' face light up. That's what I like the best. Thank you very much.
Yes, board members, I really appreciate this. At some points, Ms. Sanchez, for giving me the opportunity for working on the curriculum. It was a lot of work, and I know what hard work means because I almost crawled home one time. I was like, I can't drive, I can just crawl home. So that's how hard this curriculum was, and it's a lot of thoughts put into it with thinking for the district and stuff. And for us first, our students is what I was thinking about first. So Shea Ethel Ellison initiado, Stagecoach did a Natinstindo, Nadine Nast Ashanachi Ajanatistino. I've been teaching for 29 years. I have one of my students here, JR. I taught him when I was doing my student teaching at Stagecoach. I mean, not Stagecoach, David Skeet. So a whole passion for the kids. I'm glad they are doing well. Then first of all, I want to thank Joan for making that accommodation. We really had a good time, and thank you, Mr. Hyatt, for sharing your budget, paying for our rooms. I mean, we really appreciate it. And then thank you for the school board members and Priscilla. I just saw you working so hard over there, and wow, you know, that's how I thought about it. It's like, wow, she is just really working. I never seen her relax in the whole time that we were there at the conference. So from the beginning of the Navajo language program, we had nothing, to today we have a curriculum, and we also have a 3-week assessment, which we are so proud of. I'm proud of. Anyway, the kids are beginning to learn their language, and they're speaking at home, and they're speaking to me at school. So, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank my creator first, my grandparents for giving me the knowledge and the traditional, and my family, my aunt and my uncles. I want to thank them because I'm still I feel like they give me a lot of teaching, and this is where I am today. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mortensen.
Mr. Mortensen?
That ends the.
Oh, President Mortensen.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead down there, Mr. Mitchell.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you very much to our 2 teachers of the year, Ms. Catherine Begay and Ms. Ethel Ellison. You both are so well deserving of such an award. I thank you for the 29 years. I know Catherine's been with the school district for 37 years. And to be able to start with our children with the language program without a curriculum, and having to try and put that together compared to today having a curriculum. I know that it's probably even more of a challenge these days than it was back 28 years ago. Our children are so different, because I know 28 years ago, I'm sure our children were able to talk Navajo a little bit more, understand a little bit more, to where today there are so many of our children that are zero Navajo and zero understanding. So I know those are challenges that you all have to face to make those adjustments, but thank you so much for making it happen. I ask that you continue the great work that you've been doing, and just thank you.
Thank you very much. Ani huye and you know nan anda sata at naja just here. She ati shis nan to Satabayan Sentle, Chisnan Agibina, a conde an he, a taya that is hito an he, Bohtahil, aho inta, that Nilpazandole. That's how we learn, even though we make mistakes. Sate a kunsteinde at the behanast, though shall alle at the Nedjayashtio. Shamasane ask da kun hitini at the Nedjayatast hit con the shea ya otist and it to conyast hit and de at inta behosh. It's a very precious language to me. It helps me, and I know so many of our children find our identity inside of us of who we are. That's our Dinesh side. She'e ya Priscilla Benali in She'edo Halson Shlo Ashitni Bashichin Kia Ani Dashache Dopayo Zenet Dashanella Kut Ayan Astanen Shle. And just those precious words right there of our introduction of who we are, who our clan, or who our grandfathers or grandparents, our mothers and father are very essential to our culture. So giving that to our children, I appreciate what you guys have done. I put my pictures on Facebook, and I couldn't believe the amount of comments I received from your students, former students that you guys had, thanking you guys of teaching them, being there as extra moms sometimes. I sit on the National Johnson O'Malley for Region 2, which is the state of New Mexico. And I did email blasts. I did all these things to try to get nominations. And once we got the nominations, you two were the top of the recipients. And again, as Mr. Hyatt stressed, this is a national award. You know, there's only 12 regions on the Johnson O'Malley, on the National Johnson O'Malley, and you know, you two sit on the top of those 12 with those other 12 regions national-wide. And the last thing I want to say to you both is, we appreciate that, you know, our central office supported you guys in this. I know we kept getting some phone calls too on assistance, but you know, having that recognition and going back to Mr. Hyatt and to Mr. Bell and also to our culture directors, you know, please continue to support our language and our culture curriculum programs that we have in our schools. I know there's a lot more that can be done and a lot more support that we need to give them. You know, we fought for the increase in funding. You know, that was a huge one, and I thank you guys for that legislation, supporting that at district-wide also. And then, but Ashwanda, please, I plead of you, continue to support our teachers. They don't need any non-support, I guess you can say. So again, thank you. We appreciate you all, and thank you for recognizing them today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're excited to see where this goes. As we've talked before, when they were developing this program, I mean, this is just the beginning, and so we're excited to see the progress that it makes in the future, and more fantastic teachers and students in the generations to come. So, what else? Did you have anything else for us, Mr. Bell? Thank you very much. All right, board members, we'll go ahead, and the next item is Item 3A, approval of the minutes from our special meeting on September 3rd, 2024.
I motion to approve.
Okay. And a second down there? Second by Mr. Mitchell. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Long, Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. Next item is 3B, approval of the meeting minutes from our regular meeting on September 23rd, 2024.
Motion to approve?
All right. Second down there, anywhere?
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Abstain.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. Next item is item 4, 4A, B, C, D, E, and F of our consent agenda. Is there a motion for these items or any questions?
Motion to approve consent agenda items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, and 4F.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. Next item, study circle. Is there any public comment today, Joe?
No.
Nothing, okay. And so then we will move into our superintendent report. And for that, I'll turn the time over to Mr. Hyatt.
Ms. Keeler and Mr. De La Cruz, come on back. President Mortensen, members of the board, we have so many great things happening in Gallup McKinley County Schools. And so I had to cut my list short because of all the great things that are happening. And you can see it in our schools, the successes that our students are having. But I wanted to talk about a few things today that be of interest to the community and obviously to the board. We have several projects that are happening in our district as far as construction projects that are going to make the learning environment and provide more opportunities for our students. So I wanted to quickly just go over really some of those projects and make sure that everybody is aware of those. And there's several other projects that are coming up too that we won't touch on due to time. But we got some great news this last week that our new Career Tech Center that we have property for and have started the design process for on the east side of Gallup was approved by the PSCOC to move forward. This particular school building will be a place where students from across the county will get even more opportunity for different programs of study to pursue their career path. As the community knows, I think it's become very apparent to everybody, not only locally, but also statewide and also even nationally. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. That our school board is focused on making sure our students are prepared for their future careers and doing all that we can through kindergarten through 12th grade to make sure they have the opportunities to pursue their career, building skills to prepare them for the workforce. This is not our job is not just to prepare students for graduation, but it's to prepare them for being productive citizens in society. And so that'll be a great facility, and we'll have more to share as the design process moves on, and then hopefully construction process gets started within the year. We're hoping so. Also, if you haven't had a chance, and if you want to have a chance for the board, if you want to join me, usually I head over on Fridays to check out Red Rock Elementary to see the progress. It is wrapping up. There is not much left to do, and so we expect that school will open shortly. Shortly in construction time is still weeks away, but not months, several months or a year away. It's going to happen this year. And so if you want to join me this Friday, let me know when you're available, and welcome to do a walkthrough with you as you get a first sight on what it looks like. So we'll coordinate that later. Also, Tehachapi, dirt work and stuff is going on. It takes a long time to get the groundwork and everything ready, but then once that happens, the walls start going really quick. But Tehachapi High School is moving along. Thoreau, I wish I would have brought a picture of Thoreau also. Thoreau High School is an incredible design that's coming along very well and very quickly. And so that is moving along nicely. We hope that construction also starts on that within the year. And then another one that we haven't talked a little bit, is McKinley Academy. As you know, we have an incredible program. The largest per capita early college program for the size of the school district that we've been able to find yet. Was highly successful, and it continues to grow. We're approximately approaching 550 students that are receiving an opportunity for an early college credits and an opportunity to pursue their college preparation for their future career during high school. And so we are outgrowing UNM Gallup and need a new facility. And so we have partnered with UNM to build a facility on their campus. It'll be right as you drive into the campus, you'll see it. And it'll be about 17,000 or so square foot, about 10 classrooms worth, and also a meeting space. And for students in that program and for our 9th grade students who attend all their classes at that facility. That is in design, and we're moving quite quickly with the design in partnership with UNM. We can kind of cut some red tape really quickly when working with them that we typically have to go through, and so it's moving along quickly. And so we will, when the renderings get a little bit more finalized through high school and also for McKinley Academy, we'll bring those to one of the meetings and show the public kind of the direction that we're going with those. But we're super excited for our students to have those opportunities to be in those facilities. And as I mentioned before, there's several other construction projects that are coming up, probably 8, 9 more projects in town, Crown Point, Mid-High, Navajo High School, Gallup High School, and then the list just keeps going on and on.
Mr.
So
Hyatt, do you have
we're excited.
a second for just a couple questions on those
Sure.
construction projects? Go ahead, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Hyatt, I have a question on Crown Point. You know, it seems like I'm the one that started talking about it when I first got in 2017. And why is it, you know, I don't get any feedback on it? I don't know what the progress is. I asked before to Hatchie, Theroux, and other places. I haven't heard anything about it. You know, I think the school district made me a liar when I was telling Crown Point, the community and surrounding areas, that we're going to get a new high school and mid-school. So I want to know what the heck is going on.
That's a great question, Mr. Long, President Mortensen. Recently in one of our board meetings, we actually went through all the construction projects and the future ones and the timeline for that. And we actually approved the facility master plan that actually lays out the timeline for all those. And so I'll resend that to you so you can see it. And so there's a process in the state of New Mexico through the Public School Capital Outlay Council that they rank schools and when they start. And so that is one of the schools that is a part of that. And we've, as you know, we've worked with the state to make sure we can do both of those schools together. And so there's a timeline for those things, and the state makes us go through a certain process in order for schools to be built. And so we're following that process per the state. So.
Any other questions down there about any of our construction projects? I think we're good. Go ahead, continue, Mr. Hyatt.
Sure. The other thing that happened this last week, we had an experiential site visit. And what that is we had several schools from around the state. We had several organizations, even from around the country, that came to visit Gallup McKinley County Schools to see our career pathway programs that are happening within our school sites, and all of the things that take place with respect to preparing our students for their future career. Those site visits happened at Crown Point High School. They also happened at Miyamura High School, Rama High School, Gallup Central and our Opportunity Career Center, and also McKinley Academy. And we had about 85 participants that came for 2 days, again from across the state, to visit our school district to see how we are implementing career pathways, preparing our students for their future career inside of a rural area, or in a rural area. It's very hard to find districts across the country. We actually went out and looked. The closest we could find was Porterville, California, that had rural career pathways functioning, and they're way larger than what we are there. They'd be considered a large city in New Mexico. But during those site visits across the country and also in New Mexico, we put together our flavor of the work to prepare our students for their future career, and we had several people that came to visit our schools, listen to our students, listen to our teachers, see classrooms, see the instruction that was happening in those classrooms, and be able to have conversations about how Gallup McKinley County School District prepares our students in this way. And so it was an exciting opportunity. I appreciate, we have Jack McFarland here, who is the director of our College Career and Civic Readiness, also Kendi Keeler and Arnell De La Cruz, who headed that, and along with their staff, put together this extraordinary opportunity for these people to come and see what we do. And not only the things that are working well, but we obviously very transparent and talk about the things that we need to improve on, or maybe hurdles that we had to jump through, or things that we had to say, hey, that's not going to work. We had to backtrack and do things differently. But a lot of incredible work has been done within the school district, and we appreciate the work of our staff, our teachers. We had dozens of student ambassadors that showed the adults around the schools, and it was just an incredible site visit for not only us, because we learned from these site visits also not only what other people might be doing, but also things that we might be able to do better, or how we might be able to better showcase those things that we're doing well and our students are doing well. And so that was great. So that's why I kept you. You're welcome to leave now, but I wanted to make sure you were here so I could recognize you and your team for all the work that you've done. So thank you. It's probably one of the more popular things to happen in the school district. People care about their money and their time most, and their kids, right? Well, I wanted to mention something about this Friday for our staff that have been with us and continue to support and work for our students. And several years ago, we started doing retention addenda, or retention incentives, so for staff that wanted to, that would stick it out in the district. And so we do these 2-year time frame incentives to help staff stay. And so a year ago, the board approved for a $2,000 addenda for staff, and so if you stay 2 years, you get the $2,000, and it's $1,000 each year. And so the second half of that $2,000, which is $1,000, will be distributed to those staff that meet the criteria this Friday. So we've got lots of questions about when this is happening. We try to do it the same every year. Usually it's the last meeting in October, or the last pay period in October that we do this, or towards the end of the month. And so it's that time again. The board has also approved for a second one that will be coming in November, and so that'll be another $2,000 for the next 2 years. And so we'll pay out the first half of that in November, and more information will come out to our staff regarding that. But I want to thank the school board for their continued commitment to not only help the district recruit highly qualified people to serve our students, but also to retain them. And this is just a token of, I think, their appreciation for our staff to be able to give a little extra money, not only in the increases in pay and other incentives that we provide, but to this extra little bit of money, which can be very significant when you compare it to salaries for our staff to receive. And so we appreciate the board for continually thinking about our staff in ways in which we can retain them. So thank you. We can clap for the board too. Another popular thing this time of year, actually throughout the year, is sports. It's always a hot topic. Mr. Senna is here in the audience, our director of athletics. We're excited that this is kind of the time where we're starting to see who's going to make it to state and who qualifies. And so so far what I've heard is I think football, there's some of football's been decided, but more football will be decided as far as who's going to state here pretty quickly, volleyball and others. But soccer, we had the Mira girls soccer team actually make it to state, so we're super excited for them. That program's been doing very well for the last several years, and so, and the boys too. But it's exciting to see them go to state. So that's one of the state teams that's going to be going here pretty quickly. Who do they play? Goddard tonight. So hopefully they have cameras there. We can log in and see the game if we're not able to make it down there.
Mr. Hyatt,
Yes.
can we request for those updates of our teams that are going to state?
I will. We'll email those out. Mr. Mortensen, members of the board, Ms. Benali, will make sure that we email out. This Sunday what's the selection this Sunday? Is it volleyball? Football this Sunday? Following Sunday is volleyball. We'll know who's going to go to state. So we expect that we'll have a few football teams make it, and obviously we expect hopefully some volleyball also. So then cross country's coming up too. So. With that, any questions regarding those items before I move on to the final item? All right. President Morton, members of the board, we continually are trying to revamp how we support students and how we make sure that we are tracking information so that we can be able to help students earlier than maybe usual in a typical educational environment. And so we have done some incredible work, and we have some staff here that have done some incredible work to make sure that we have more tools at our fingertips to make sure that we're helping students. And particularly today, I wanted to introduce Reina Sanchez, who's a director of instruction. She oversees most of the high schools and also a middle school. And her, along with several people, but Mr. Kyle Wood, who also is a part of this work to make sure that we have these tools available to help seniors continue on their path to graduation in a way that we can intervene as soon as possible if they're, or at least that we can see as soon as possible how close students are on track to graduate. And so I don't want to steal any thunder, but I want to turn the time over to Ms. Sanchez to discuss PowerPoint and some of this new tool that we have at our disposal. Ms. Sanchez.
Sorry, didn't use my teacher voice. And we're here to present the course completion tracker that we created this year. So our compelling why for our course completion tracker is that the course completion rates are building each year.
You said that like you're inputting all of the student data in this, and it will be done by the end of the year. Who inputs this? Is it something that has to be hand input, or does it feed automatically from our grade tracker that we're using?
So this one does not feed automatically. This one is hand input. And so we've given them a timeline. We rolled it out last month, and then the schools had a month. So any of the counselors and students success advisors are the ones that are inputting this. So there are reports on Synergy that they can pull and easily see where our students are.
So this certainly could be like a maintenance monster if it gets that way. If people aren't like quick on it, huh?
They've been very, very good about getting everything input timely. I'll also say that everybody can see the value in this, and we've definitely had some really good ahas from this information.
Is this information just easy just to pull out of Synergy, like no problem?
Yes.
How tough would it be for us to have this stuff created from Synergy to eliminate the need for a data input person?
That I'm not, would have to.
Mr. Wood?
To that.
Well, as he's coming up, maybe you have some comments on that. But I know we're investing in some time and energy to look at some products that might help us do that internally. We used to have to go farm that out, but now we have Mr. Kyle Wood, who's a data analyst. So you have any comments on that question?
Thanks, Mr. Hyatt. That's the next step. So Mr. Clark actually just provided me with Power BI. And I don't know if you're familiar with that program, but it would be nice to link up Synergy to Power BI so it's more automated.
Yeah.
We avoid that maintenance that you're talking about, and look forward, that's to come.
Someone's got to get their 10 key hand warmed up to start inputting all this stuff. Okay. My next question is and you answered a little bit about it, but like, is there a specific person who is ultimately responsible for this? Like for example, like does the principal is ultimately the guy that is in charge of like looking at this and making sure that we're using this information? Because this is like super valuable information that you're kicking out here. So we just want to make sure that it's actionable and that like something is happening and somebody is doing something about it.
So yes, Mr. President, absolutely. So Kristen and I are the DIs for high schools. And so her and I, every time we do a site visit, we meet with the principal about this. So we pull this up. We talk to the principal about these students that are in danger of not graduating, what's happening here. We talk to them about the last time anything's been updated. And then they in turn talk to counselors and their team as to what the plan is for that.
Awesome. No, that's great. It's always a concern at the end of the school year. We don't want there to be any surprises.
Right.
Congratulations, you're not graduating next week. We don't want to have anything like that happen. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. Do you guys have any questions, board members? Priscilla?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mortensen kind of talked about what I wanted to talk about getting that late notice. I think is something that we always, as board members, we get feedback back on. Our parents are calling us saying, we just found out our child's not graduating and it's a month to graduation. And it hasn't happened lately, thank God. Last couple of years it hasn't happened. But I think one of the things that I see on here under your parent conference, and there's one column, could that be multiple columns? And then also, is there a student conference that we can add to this list that the students were also notified? Because I think that sometimes the parents would come to us and say, well, our kids didn't even know. But you can pull this up and say, yeah, we told them on this day that we did review this documentation to them. And I don't know how parents, I don't know if there's something they can physically sign that says, because we can just put dates in there. A principal can just put date in there and say, you were here, and the parents can say, no, I wasn't. I wasn't even around or something. So how are we really reinforcing that
Documentation.
Yeah, the documentation of the parent review.
Yes, ma'am. So, Mr. President, yes, there are documents that need to be signed by parents, notifying of them of that. In the column for parent conference, we list as many dates as needed in that parent conference. And right to the right of the parent conference is student conference. And you can see like there's a lot more student conference because our counselors meet with them very often. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Ms. Manuelito, we have a policy before we leave on winter break. Every student is informed if they're not on track to graduate before December. That's what we've done in the last couple of years. So
When is that? Before winter break?
Before winter break.
Okay.
And same thing with student retention. If there's a possibility, we have to tell them before we go on winter break.
So with that being said, once they're notified, do you guys sit down and tell them their options or what they can do and how they can do it?
The school counselors do that, yes, at the school level.
Great. Any other questions? This is a lot of work. I can tell. I applaud you. Thank you very much. It helps a lot. I mean, my question, I didn't want to sound like I was being too critical. I just was, when I was looking at this, I was like, holy cow, this is an incredible amount of work and potentially like maintenance for, somebody to have to do. And so that was the only thing is hopefully we can automate this and make it seems like there should be some automatic report from Synergy or some kind of upload into, a macro or something like that could make this a little easier. Otherwise, it's just like a crazy amount. So, yeah, go ahead.
Beginning of your presentation, you said you guys invented this. This is not something that like you buy and you put stuff in. You guys invented this. Wow. Impressive. Thank you.
He created the formulas, so in a sense, yes.
I just want to add also that there is a macro for cleanup.
Okay. You should patent this thing.
Yeah, you better copyright this, kitty.
Thank you very much. This is fantastic. We really appreciate this presentation. So, Mr. Hyatt?
Yeah, as you can tell, yes. We would not be in a place where we could do things like that ourselves. We'd have to farm it out, but we have the competence, the people that are coming on board, and that have the expertise to help us do things quicker, less expensive, and in a way that's really tailored to meet the needs of our students. And this is a perfect example of that, where it's no longer like a senior thing. We're looking at ninth graders and really watching their progress towards graduation so that we don't have those unfortunate conversations as much as possible later in their senior year when graduation's in jeopardy. And so we appreciate those who worked on this. There's a lot of input that came from different people to affect this to become a good product for us. And so we appreciate the staff that were involved. That's all.
All right, board members and ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I'll draw your attention to our notices of communications with our calendar items on there, the next meetings that we have and things like that coming up. Make sure and put that Thanksgiving break on there. Don't bring your kids to school. It will be closed. The next.
Ms. Martinson?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Hyatt and to our staff. I was privileged to attend the Destination Career Academy of New Mexico, which is on our online schooling last week with Mr. Hyatt, and it was phenomenal the way our online schooling is progressing. I saw a lot of wonderful initiatives that are happening, especially in technology. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I think as board members, if that time ever comes for you guys, I know they came here and did a presentation, but it was phenomenal, the progress that we're making in that program. So thank you, Mr. Hyatt, and staff for continuing our online program.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. All right, our next thing here is our new business, and we'll take up item 6A, something we're all excited about to talk about. Is there any information on this, Mr. Hyatt, or do we just jump right in?
Mr. Mortensen, President Mortensen, yeah, these are the dates. This is a typical process that we use every year. We kind of rotate as much as possible for different dates and nights for different high schools for their graduation. And this is what we're proposing for this year.
All right, so for those folks that are at home and watching, those thousands and millions of people at home watching on their computers, the graduation dates will be Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m., and that's for Sagai and Navajo Pine. Thursday, May 22nd at 6:30 p.m. for Tohatchi, Rama, and Miyamura. Friday, May 23rd at 6:30 p.m. for Theroux, Crown Point, and Gallup High. Friday, May 23rd at 10:30 a.m. for Gallup Central. And those, of course, are proposed until they're approved. And so I'll entertain a motion for those.
Motion.
All right, motion to approve, and a second by Mr. Schaaf. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes, and I just want to add a comment at the end.
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. All right, put those in your book. That's when graduation is. And Ms. Benali, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to comment for next year, if we could go maybe Thursday through Saturday. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a look at that. Next item is 6B, also something everybody's been anticipating. So now I'll turn the time over to Mr. Hyatt to step us through this item.
President Mortensen, members of the board, community, we as a school district, as we continue to progress and look for opportunities to improve the systems and also logistically how we provide services for our students in the best way possible. Sometimes you find out that maybe what you've done for a long time isn't the best thing for students. I think we found that out as we talked about earlier with respect to how we were providing instruction at the high school level. We were kind of a very traditional model of providing, in the older days, less recently, it was from a book. And the teacher would then teach from the book. We've come a long ways from then to the point where we're actually creating relevance in our curriculum and our instruction, tailoring that to their students' needs so that they can again progress towards their future career. As we have continued to look not only across the state of New Mexico, but also looking internally at data, looking internally at the progress of our students academically. We have had some concerns for several years now that we have been looking at ways in which we can address, and there's lots of work that has been done and through the teachers and sites try to address the problem. But we have seen a significant decline in academic scores specifically. This is one of the things that triggered this discussion. When students moved from the 5th grade in elementary school to the 6th grade at the middle school. And we have done lots of different things, and we've seen some growth in different areas, but there is an on average decline from all of our elementaries to our mid schools with respect to academic scores when students go from the 6th grade to the 7th grade. It's not like multiple double digits, but it's significant enough where there's a drop continuously year after year. And so we really started to wrap our heads around, is there something more that we could do or should do to do what's best for students? And as we thought through that and looked around the state, we saw a lot of school districts that have gone to or have really stayed with a K through 6 model at the elementary schools. Had a chance to interview some of those school districts and got a lot of anecdotal and conversational information from those people. And we also, from then, started looking at research along this topic of 6th graders being at the elementary level rather than the middle school level. And there's a lot of research out there from some universities that have done extensive work to look at not only data, looking at social emotional reasons, maturity level, and other things that are happening in a student's life at that age as they getting ready to go into puberty and then being a part of an older adult, where there's a wide range of students. I taught 6th grade through 12th grade, and there's a big difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader. It's a huge difference. Not only in their learning style and how you reach them best, but also in their interactions socially one with another. And in some cases that can be positive, but in many cases there's often an attempt in schools to try to separate those ages because of influence or because of the social aspect or the social nature of those two age groups, for example. But also, as I talked to superintendents and looked at the data, more importantly it has been very difficult. We haven't been able to stop that cliff of decline in academics as far as state assessment and other learning. So what we are bringing to you today is, after about a year and a half or so of contemplating and looking at the data, about moving from a K-5 elementaries to a K-6 model for Gallup McKinley County Schools. Thank you for bringing that back. So I provided a PowerPoint. Uh-oh. Neither of them are working. Oh, there it goes. Just slow. Each of these slides kind of touches on, at least the first ones, touch on some things that were valuable. This isn't all encompassing. There are many different things that are either concerns or things that need to be in consideration when looking at a change like this. But again, as we looked at the needs of our students, one of the concerns, and the studies show this quite clearly, is the maturity level of a 6th grader is much more in line with the upper elementary ages versus 7th or 8th grade as students reach and have reached puberty and are maturing in that way. And so one of the things, I know it talks a lot about discipline on this particular slide, and it's not all about discipline. We'll talk about some other things that kind of relate to maturity also. But they showed a really drastic increase in these studies of discipline. And it's probably, in the studies it shows, it's kind of due to students being placed in an environment that may not be the best tailored for them. And around students that may not be the best fit as far as maturity level. And as a result of that, there tends to be more negative behaviors as far as classroom behavior or school behavior. And part of that is probably the transition. We'll talk about that too, is, you're taking somebody that went from a one teacher or a few teachers to multiple teachers. Typically it's in you're going from class to class rather than having cohorts of classes in one room. It's a drastic change. And so one of the things that was a huge consideration in our taking this to the board for a request is the maturity level of 6th grade students. And we found that anecdotally from a lot of people that we have met with and talked to in those schools that have 6th graders in the elementary, how much of a better fit, how much easier it is for those students to be focused on their academics and their learning. And so that was one of the considerations as we looked at this. The next one, I referenced that earlier, is academics. Across the country, it showed in the data that it is not uncommon for there to be lower test scores for 6th graders in middle school than 6th graders in elementary school. And I think all of these intertwine probably in a giant Venn diagram overlapping, and they feed into one another probably in many different ways. But maturity, being in an uncomfortable environment for any person, probably typically leads to not performing as well. And not that schools don't try to make it a good environment, but it's just, again, per the things that I've talked about before, the environment may not be the best for those 6th graders to learn at their best. And so you see a significant academic drop, and we also see this in our district. It's a 6 percentage points approximately drop from 6th grade or 5th grade to 6th grade. Social emotionally, whether it's the influence possibly by an older student that's at a different maturity level, whether it's the interests of those students compared, again, from a 6th grader to an 8th grader or 6th grader to 7th grader, the interests are different. We talked about maturity a little bit, so the social emotional toll that can be on a student who's making that transition is also a struggle for students. That's also data and research has been done on that issue also. And so the more socially, emotionally safe place and productive place for a student is not quite at the level of a 7th or 8th grader, which again lends the data to show that they should be at the elementary for the best environment. Next is the transition. Again, I talked about this a little bit, but when you take a student from one environment and drastically take them to a different environment, from an elementary style or a schedule to a secondary type schedule, high school, middle school type schedule, that transition is typically not helpful to that student. It's a drastic change. And so what happens is students tend to have a negative attitude towards school starting at that particular point, which probably relates to the dropping in scores and other things and other pressures that they have in their lives as they make this transition. And so another thing that we took into consideration is is that the best time for a transition? Probably not, given the maturity level, social emotional, and those types of things that we've already discussed. And the research is here to kind of to back that. This kind of leads off from the last slide, the school environment. Having this age level in a smaller, more nurturing environment where there's less adults that students have an easier opportunity for attachment is very appropriate for this age level. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are not trying to create that environment, whatever schools we have. But again, I think just naturally for students that age, the school environment is not the most beneficial for the student in that kind of a schedule and environment. So again, just a few other considerations as we looked at this, bringing this to the board. One of the things that came up quite often was athletics. Well, 6th graders are involved in middle school athletics, and so are they going to miss out on that opportunity? And as we have gone through that, I'm sure there's other opportunities, but we found there's different models that we can go to make sure that students of the 6th grade still have those opportunities that they would have had whether they went to middle school or if they stayed at an elementary school. And so whether that's a transportation of students over to the middle school to participate in those sports, or whether it's we create different kinds of leagues. And maybe this is a time in Gallup McKinley County Schools we provide other opportunities for our elementaries. Right now we only have basketball. That's it. Basketball and track a little bit, right? Kind of. Maybe there's some opportunity here to provide some other sports to elementary schools to give more opportunities. And or it's a combination, and some of it may be depending on, like in Crown Point, for example, there's a little bit more closeness to the schools, or a Tehachapi or a Thoreau or outlying rural communities. It's easier for that transportation. And in Gallup, it might be a little trickier, but we know that we can definitely figure that out. But maybe there's some other opportunities for different kinds of leagues, possibly for our students, and maybe this would actually make us think more outside the box to help us even provide a better opportunity in the world of athletics and even clubs and other types of things for these students. Another thing that was taken into consideration was the class sizes and the school sizes. So one of the first concerns I had was if we were to move to this, can we fit all the students in the elementaries? And so we did a analysis of all of our schools to make sure that there was class space and space for 6th grade remaining at the elementary. And we spent several months looking at that just to make sure. And the conclusion was that we do have space at all of our elementaries to accommodate this. One of the luxuries of that is it opens up a little bit more space in the middle schools also. And so there's a pro there in the other direction. And and it kind of leads into my next bullet. GMCS was strategized to create better transitions for 6th grade to middle and also 8th grade to high school. This might provide us a better opportunity to re-look on how we do the transition. Students go now from 6th grade to 7th grade, but also there's been a lot of conversations about 8th grade to 9th grade and how can we better make those transitions for students so that it's more productive and easier for them and less of a stress. And so we might look a little differently how we do 6th grade, where they do get introduced to more adults as far as in their learning environment. Not maybe 5 or 6 different teachers, but a couple maybe at that age. And then in 7th grade, we taper it to more, or increase it to more. And then again, from 8th grade to 9th grade, what it's really sparked a lot of conversation on how we can do better at transitioning them. And so there's more conversations happening, especially within the career pathway work, how we can better link the learning that's happening in the middle schools to the high school and make that transition easier also. So not only does that create relevance for the students, but it also would help them make that transition less stressful as they go to a new environment. Lastly, transportation would obviously increase the elementary, and that would diminish a little bit at the middle school. And as we looked at that, it was pretty quick. We found out that that wasn't going to be an issue, that we had the capacity to handle that. I think my last slide is the expected outcomes. And there are more than this, and there are lots of different things that we looked at. It kind of highlighted some main things that we considered and looked at, and the data that we looked at, and what the data told us. But also the expected outcomes in this kind of transition. And really these come from a student-centered view. It can be sometimes very difficult in a school district to not get caught up in adult wants or adult needs, and trying to make sure, not that everybody's needs and wants aren't important, but a student's needs, looking at the research, looking at how this would have a positive effect on them. That's what we really tried to hone in on and try to do what's best for the students. And so one of the things obviously that we feel that we would see, do the research, we would have higher academic scores at that grade level by not transitioning to the middle school. Obviously it would be more comfortable, from the things I talked about, a more comfortable learning environment for our students, less stress, less transition, more of an opportunity to make that transition when they do go to the middle school. And making sure that, and that's an area that we can definitely do better work and more work, especially with this type of a schedule or a grade level movement. And last, and I talked about this a little bit too, is we can, in this type of a model, we can be able to put more resources, whether it's not only space, but more attention at that middle school level. This would maybe have us spread a little less thin, and be able to really hone in on those grades, 7th and 8th grade, where they're going through a lot of changes in their lives individually. And we would have an opportunity, and we would want to definitely embrace that opportunity to make sure that we really hone in on how we can do things a little bit differently to make sure that we are meeting those students' needs, and we can really focus on that grade. A lot of school districts will maybe have a 9th grade academy, have one school for just 9th grade or this or that. There's lots of different models out there. But one of the benefits is we could really hone in on 7th and 8th grade, those students, to make sure that they're receiving the best educational opportunities that we can, the best environment for them. And maybe we do things a little bit differently then too. Maybe that's something we bring to the board later. Maybe other ideas we can do for those students to make the learning better at that grade level, rather than making it look very traditional like it does now. So with that, board members, we are proposing as administration to have you vote on having a K-6 schools, which, like many of our neighbors, I think most of our neighbors all are K-6. There's very few that are K-5, and looking things differently. It's a little bit differently of way of looking at things. I know the Gallup McKinley County Schools had this model for decades, but sometimes we have to think outside the box a little bit and do things differently for our students, and so that's why we're proposing this to you this time. Thank you.
Mr. Hyatt, thank you for your presentation. I've got a couple of questions, then I'll open questions up to my fellow board members. Number one, I want to give recognition to you and your staff for, where I can tell that there's a lot of work that went into this, and a lot of study and a lot of thought. It isn't just something that, it isn't something that I'm sure you just woke up on Monday and we're like, hey, let's do this. This is a great idea. It's only a result of the data that we're collecting, how closely we're tracking the academic progress of our kids and stuff, that we would even be able to recognize these little like micro trends, and then formulate a plan to try to address them. And I really appreciate that. When people ask me about what's going on over here at GMCS and what kinds of things we're doing, I tell them all the time that we have the most professional staff that I've ever worked with, and that they are 100% focused on student outcomes, and that they would look under every rock, behind every bush, for some opportunity or something to give our kids an advantage and to help them do better. And so I know that it's with that spirit that this solution was approached. So I have a couple of quick questions in that vein. Relative to space in our elementary schools, for this extra class worth of kids, are we talking about larger class sizes, or are we talking about there's additional rooms for these sixth graders to be in?
President Morris, members of the board, there's additional rooms or space available for that. So there wouldn't be a cramming in,
Okay.
as I think what you're alluding to. We're saying that there's an appropriate amount of space to be able to have appropriate class sizes in classrooms. And again, we might look at the model a little differently, how we transition adults into those class spaces, so that we make a better transition, so they see more adults as teachers. And some of our elementaries are doing that now, where they have multiple teachers teaching a grade level. Whether there's a math expert in a school, then they have more of a reading expert, and those students flip between those two teachers. But as far as space is concerned, that was a big concern of ours, and we made sure that was available space.
How does this look, from a staffing concern? Number one, I've got, I have 4 boys, and so I'm very familiar with how they are. And as sixth graders, they're way closer to fifth graders than they are to eighth graders. It's like on a different planet. And so it makes a ton of sense to me. I'm just trying to understand some of these other concerns. From a staffing concern at our junior highs, is there a lot of teachers that are strictly sixth grade teachers, or do they teach science to all grade levels? And so we're talking about pulling one grade worth of kid out, or are we going to have, a bunch of spare teachers at our junior highs now? Or how does that work?
President Morris, members of the board, before I answer that question, I also want to acknowledge Ms. Bischoff, Mr. Bell, with their team, who also, they did all the legwork behind this. I didn't just go and do all the research myself.
Sure.
They brought all this to me, so I'll make sure I acknowledge them in the room for their work on this. But with respect to what you're talking about as far as staffing, there's obviously every year, there's a section of teachers, a chunk of teachers that leave the school district, and so there's opportunities to fill those positions for teachers. There's some teachers that are licensed differently, and so we went through all the licensure levels of every single teacher. We went through all of how that could maneuver, and where teachers would fit best. And we also looked at the attrition and people who left and what positions would need to be filled. And there would be probably a little bit more need next year for elementary teachers to hire, and less of a need to hire at the secondary level. But we felt that there would be, for the most part, a wash in that, except it's just which way those teachers moved, or some are going to leave, and some are going to fill obviously positions that people vacate.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. I might have some more in a minute. Board members.
Just one.
Go ahead, Mr. Schaaf, you're first.
One comment. I went to Gallup McKinley County Schools. When I went, it was K through 6, and then junior high was 7th through 9th. And then, but even transitioning from 6th to 7th grade at junior high, it was a little, quite a change from what you were used to. It's threw you off for a little bit, but.
I should have called you to find out, like when that happened. I asked Kay Dawn. I'm not going to say how many years she's worked in the school district, but between her and Wade, it's been decades. And myself, my kids went to school decades, and so I'm not going to try to date you, Mr. Schaff, but somewhere in between decades and when you went to school, there was a change, and I don't know what the reason was.
It was
I'm guessing
after 1976. That's when I graduated. So.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you when I was born. But it was before that. But I don't know what the actual reason was to make the change. But we haven't seen anybody do it for a long time in New Mexico, and there's a reason for that, I believe. And maybe this is a different generation. As time passes by, the old model may not fit what our students need at this time. And I think, I hate to bring up COVID, but I think part of that plays into it a little bit. This might be better for our students as they move forward. But yeah, it could have been a financial reason in the past. It's not a financial reason now for this. This has nothing to do with it. But sometimes people transition, and because of building sizes and what they're constructing, and a whole host of reasons why they might adjust things. Typically, though, I think it's try to meet the needs of the students at an appropriate environment for that. So sometimes a 7, 9. Like I said, some people do a 9th grade academy, and then do 3 grade levels for high school. But they all figure out sports, because those models are across the state of Mexico. I know several 9th grade academies, and they still do sports, and they still participate. It's not a hurdle. It's not a big hurdle to overcome. So.
Good. Board members, any other questions down there?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a couple of them too. But you asked 2 of the questions I had, so thank you for that, Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Hyatt, you stated that you interviewed some of other school districts. Were those school districts in our state that you interviewed? Were they kind of our size? I see a lot of North Carolina, Duke University. Were there any statistics or data from UNM, ASU, New Mexico State University that would accommodate more of a closer data source? And then also I would really like to see another presentation on what you talked about under considerations of your PowerPoint presentation on GMCS. Would like to strategize to create a better transition. I would like to see that transition plan when your staff come up with that. And the other comment I wanted to ask and request for is if you could have your leadership do a presentation to our surrounding chapters. This is a good presentation, but one of the things that I think would be more influenced and more, more of a catch would be some statistics from within our local state, even listing the schools that you interviewed that are doing the same thing. As we all know, BIE is one. They have BACAs at K through 6th grade. So something like that shows that we're already kind of doing this in our state to kind of help parents understand that it is being done here. So those are just kind of the questions I have and comments that I have, sir.
Sure. President Mortensen, Ms. Benali, I didn't interview anybody outside the state. I talked to people mostly regionally in our area. So there's like Big Farmington and Bloomfield. There's several others. I can't remember all of them, but I didn't talk to one superintendent or one person in a school district that said they would ever go back to a K-5. They saw these different things and how they played out in their school district, and how again, I think going off of what Mr. Mortensen said, how a 6th grader is much closer to a 5th grade than it is a 7th grade or 8th grade student. And so all of that information we took in from local mostly neighboring school districts, but there's a lot of them in the state. We can definitely put together more data that's statewide of who is K6. Yeah, it's a very normal thing to have a K6. I actually think it's abnormal, although I haven't crunched all the numbers for every single school district. But when I provide that data, you'll see that it's not a unique thing that somebody has a K6. It's a very prominent thing that happens in the state of New Mexico and across the country. So, and
I think just having that data of our local area, you'll get more buy-in. I mean, with our parents. The other thing with athletics, that was something that I'm really concerned about too, how we're going to structure that. But I do know there is the Four Corners League that a lot of our K through 6 teams are part of, and they do have cross country, volleyball, basketball that they join in. So I don't know if that's something we can look into about the Four Corners League and maybe join in if there's already structured there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benelli.
Any other questions, board members?
Yeah, I had just.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm still trying to understand here, but anyway, going back to teachers. So, if we were to do this and go K through 6, does that automatic? I mean, I know we have our teachers who are licensures as elementary teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So would they just still? If we bring down a grade level to 6th grade where 6th graders require the mid-school teacher, will the elementary teacher just stay and be qualified to still teach that 6th grader at elementary level? I don't know.
President Mortensen, Mr. Mitchell, it kind of goes back what I was talking about, the licensure levels. So you could be K-12 licensed, or you could be K-6 licensed, that's what the license is. It's a K-6 license. Even the state of New Mexico doesn't call it a K-5 or K-8. But as far as some people, I'm 6-12 licensed. So I could teach 6th grade through 12th grade. So I could teach at the elementary if there was a 6th grade, right? And so there's overlapping licensure levels that gives a lot of flexibility because in New Mexico there's a lot of different models and a lot of them are K-6, and so the structure of the licensure system allows for that. And so it's not a hurdle that we're worried about because licensure fixes that for us. Now, if they had very strict K-5 and then 6th grade was some additional thing a teacher would have to do, and we're moving them down into an environment where the licensure system doesn't play very well in our favor, then that would be a problem. But the licensure system for the PED does not cause a problem for us. It just, again, we looked at every individual teacher what their license was to make sure that there was opportunities for them, whether it's secondary or whether it's elementary. And in the end, what I said is we probably have to hire a few more elementary, but a lot of our 6th grade would fill in other 7th, 8th, or maybe even if they want to go high school positions. So.
Okay, thank you for that and helping me understand the licensure a little bit more for K-6 or 7 to 12 or K. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Are we ready to vote?
Motion to approve of K through 6th grade elementary schools for 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
May I ask one question about this action item? The action item on here is for 25-26 school year. Does that mean that it will be permanent going forward, or is it only for next school year?
No, obviously the board can do what they want every year, but there are some requirements that we need to get ready for. It would be moving forward.
Okay. All right.
But we have to do some things to get it started, and so we have to do some applications with the state and make sure that they're aware of it. So.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and vote on it. Please roll call.
Start on that end.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. All right. Get ready. 6th graders are coming back to elementary school.
President Mortensen, thank you. But members of the board, thank you. Again, a lot of time and energy. I don't want to beat the dead horse type situation, but We really feel this is the best for kids, and very passionate about that, and very convinced after looking over all the data. And we're super excited for this transition for our kids.
All right, board members, it's time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Ms.